Welcome back. You're watching Gravitas, and now to the story of Charlie Gard, all of 11 months old, in the final hours of his life, leaving so many questions behind: the legal controversy, the moral dilemma, the limits of science, and the questions of conscience. Could his life have been saved? It's a devastating story, but it must be told.
The hardest thing that we'll ever have to do is to let our beautiful little Charlie go. Put simply, this is about a sweet, gorgeous, innocent little boy who was born with a rare disease, who had a real, genuine chance at life, and a family who loved him so very dearly, and that's why we fought so hard for him.
The most heartbreaking words a father say, bidding farewell to a son who's 2 weeks away from his first birthday. Charlie Gard won't make it. In a surprise statement, his parents told the world that he won't be taken to America for an experimental treatment. His condition has deteriorated to the point where the treatment will not work. Charlie has suffered irreparable brain damage. The 11-month-old suffers from mitochondrial depletion syndrome, a rare genetic disease where he cannot breathe without assistance. His story became an international headline as a medical crisis turned into a pitched court battle. Charlie's family wanted to seek medical treatment in the US. His doctors said it wouldn't help and only prolong the baby's suffering. British and European courts sided with the hospital. Pope Francis and US President Donald Trump supported the parents. American pro-life activists flew to London. Protesters calling themselves Charlie's Army slammed the court and the hospital.
The parents of the critically ill baby, Charlie Gard, are preparing to say goodbye to their son. They say the window of opportunity has now passed. At the center of this case was a promise of an experimental drug by a U.S. doctor. The Great Ormond Street Hospital accuses this doctor of providing false hope to the parents and say they were concerned when the doctor had not looked at the most recent scans of Charlie and had a financial interest in the drug. They asked the doctor to take time to think through what has happened. The parents say they want to spend as much time as possible with Charlie, but say he won't make his first birthday on August 4th.
This case became a flashpoint for many issues: the role of the state versus the rights of the child, the authority of a doctor versus the rights of a parent, healthcare funding, medical intervention, the ethicality of subjecting a child to a medical experiment which hasn't been tried on any human or animal before. The parents say their son might have been saved had it not been the delay due to legal roadblocks.
Charlie, we say Mummy and Daddy, we love you so much. We always have and we always will, and we are so sorry that we couldn't save you. Sweet dreams, baby.
As the larger debates continue, they've asked for privacy to spend some precious final moments with Charlie. Bureau Report, WION. Joining us, Stephen Golub, an international law expert among other things, joining us from California. Good evening, Stephen. I have no words for what this family is going through. As one headline says, everyday people in an extraordinary battle, and their last wish, as they call it, is for Charlie to go home with them and spend his final moments, and that too is being contested. Where do the limits of the law lie? Who decides how far you can fight, how far you can push to remain alive?
Well, that's an excellent question. And as your very good lead-in to the story explained, this is a devastating story. As an ethical matter, I'm not a medical ethicist, I should explain that, but I think we can all relate to it on a human level. And even as a legal matter, it's not totally clear because it would vary from country to country, from within the United States, from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So it's a matter that really played out within the UK court system, and we have to go with and respect as a legal matter what they decided, which was against bringing this baby over to the United States for potential medical care. What I'll add to that, just as background for the viewers who may not be aware of it, is that this is an extraordinarily rare medical condition. Apparently only 16 people in the world have it, and that the claim that there was medical treatment available to him in the U.S. does seem very, very questionable. The claim on the part of the doctor who offered the treatment is based on a very limited study of 9 patients, of whom one of them was able to be taken off of a ventilator after being given this experimental drug. But in addition, this was a much milder form of this condition than what poor Charlie had. So I'm not passing judgment either way as an ethical or as a medical or as a legal matter. We have to defer to the UK courts in that respect. I think we can all agree it's just a tragic situation with more than enough pain to go around for everyone involved.
And were the parents then offered false hope is the question? And as parents, of course, you want your child to live, whatever the cost, whatever it takes, essentially. And sometimes you may not know the exact facts of the case. You may not understand what science has in it for you. You're not sure if you can trust the doctors who are saying that there is no way out of this problem. Having said that, do you believe this is, it's not just about the ethics. There is a doctor who said that treatment is available. There is the Pope who stood up in support of the parents. There's the American president who said, we welcome you for treatment. This went way beyond these people who didn't perhaps know what they were dealing with.
Yeah, as I'd mentioned, this claim of this American doctor that he could have helped at least needs to be questioned based on the medical evidence available. What the hospital in the United Kingdom also has come out and said is that the doctor did have a financial stake in the company that produces this drug. So you have to take that into consideration as well. But again, getting back to the human level of all of this, it could well have been. It's a shame that an issue like this gets politicized in terms of all sorts of groups with all sorts of political stances getting involved. But that sometimes is the case in our world when the case of a child or some other tragic instance gets enough attention and does raise medical and legal and political issues. I think President Trump might have weighed in. There are many reasons why he might have weighed in as he did. It could be simply a gut reaction. He read about this or saw this horrible situation on TV and simply decided to voice his sentiments. He didn't back it up with any more concrete offer or policy. It could also be that there was a political agenda on his part in terms of appealing to certain constituencies in the U.S. that might have favored the approach of flying this baby in. But I'll end my speculation on the political aspect of that there, and will come down really in terms of, again, as the lead into your story emphasized, this is a devastating story, and the right or wrong of it wasn't absolutely clear.
The parents say that they might have been able to save him had it not been for the legal battles and the delay they caused. How do you see the role of the hospital here in the British courts?
Well, I'm very reluctant to pass judgment on the role of the hospital or the British courts because I'm not an expert on the British legal system, although I have some knowledge of it, and I'm less of an expert on medical matters. From what I've read about it and from what I've learned about this issue, it sounds like they were grappling with a very, very difficult matter. It sounds that it does seem like that in the British system regarding healthcare and the legal ramifications of certain treatments, it's a rather systemic approach, that they have certain policies in place. And when the doctors, based on all the medical evidence, decide that, look, heroic measures might actually perpetuate the pain of a poor little boy in this instance, that there's a deference on the part of the courts to that. We have that to some extent in the United States, but the United States medical culture, if you will, is much more individualistic. Individual parents may say, no, I want to challenge this, and may make it a legal or political matter. It sometimes is less the case where there's a more systemic approach in the United Kingdom. You would know better than I would how India might treat this matter. And for that matter, I guess we should recognize there are legitimate differences of opinion within your society, within the UK, and within US society about very, very difficult issues such as this.
Absolutely. Stephen Golub, we'll leave it at that. Thanks very much for joining us here on Gravitas this evening. Now, for years, scientists across the world believed that moon was a dry satellite. A breakthrough came in 2008 when researchers found water trapped in glass beads during the Apollo missions. But what scientists find now could be bigger. Additional data uncovered by India's lunar orbiter Chandrayaan gives scientists reason to believe that there may be much more water on the moon than previously thought. This new study from the Brown University's Department of Earth, Environmental and Planetary Sciences suggests that there's a lot of water deep below the lunar surface. It says the water exists in more areas than just around the poles. It is difficult to say exactly how much at this point. This after analyzing satellite data from Chandrayaan-1, the researcher analyzed lunar rock samples from beads of glass that formed when magma erupted from the moon's interior billions of years ago. These glass beads have water trapped within, and the study shows that there are pockets of water-rich material spread all across the celestial body's surface. And here's what Chandrayaan-1 set out to achieve. Its objective was to conduct scientific experiments using instruments on the spacecraft which would yield data for the preparation of a three-dimensional atlas of both the near and far sides of the moon. For chemical and mineralogical mapping of the entire lunar surface at high spatial resolution, mapping particularly the chemical elements magnesium, aluminium, silicon, calcium, iron, titanium, radon, uranium and thorium to increase scientific knowledge, to test the impact of a sub-satellite on the surface of the moon as a forerunner to future soft landing missions, and to detect water ice on the moon. And let's come back to what's happening on the Earth. The Ministry of External Affairs has slammed the Organization of Islamic Cooperation for adopting factually incorrect and misleading references to matters internal to India. The 44th session of the organization was held in Côte d'Ivoire between the 10th and 11th of July. The OIC contact group on Jammu and Kashmir has reportedly reaffirmed the organization's support to Kashmir, coming down heavily on the reported reference to Kashmir. The Ministry of External Affairs said, and I quote, OIC has again adopted certain resolutions which contain factually incorrect and misleading references to matters internal to India, including the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, which is an integral part of India. India has rightly rejected all such references. The OIC has no locus standi on India's internal affairs, and we strongly advise the OIC to refrain from making such references in future.